Hello, it's Monday, August 14th, 2017. You are listening to Inception Radio Network, voice of the fringe majority. This is Carol Carl with UFO Headline News. Well, the Perseids have peaked and moved on for this time around. Tonight, we get to look for that faint constellation Ophiuchus the Serpent Bearer. Interestingly enough, this broadcaster recently heard it pronounced by someone who should know as Ophiuchus, so we're just going to put it in that tomato category. Nevertheless, tonight it appears in the south to southwest sky. In fact, you can see it throughout August and September evenings above the bright ruddy star Antares, the brightest in that constellation Scorpius the Scorpion. Note the planet Saturn. It'll be in the vicinity of Antares and somewhat brighter than Scorpius's brightest star. This golden-colored planet shines in front of the constellation Ophiuchus at present and will continue to do so for several more months. This year, 2017, the Sun travels in front of the zodiacal constellation Scorpius from November 23rd to November 30th. And in front of that zodiacal constellation, Ophiuchus, from November 30th to December 18th. There are official boundary lines, and you can see those on a chart later at ufoheadlinenews.com. They were drawn up by the International Astronomical Union back in the 1930s. There are charts, and there's a photo of the constellation Ophiuchus and the brightest star, Rasalhague, and Scorpius's brightest star, Antares, into the bargain. Rasalhague marks the head of Ophiuchus, but isn't anywhere as bright as Antares, which depicts the scorpion's beating heart. The Zodiac, also known as the pathway of animals, represents that rather narrow band of sky astride the ecliptic, which is the plane of Earth's orbit projected onto the sphere of stars. The signs of the Zodiac are familiar to everybody who reads online astrology advice. There are 12 familiar signs of the zodiac: Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, and so on. Then there are the 13 constellations of the zodiac, which includes Ophiuchus. The Sun moves in front of Ophiuchus from about November 30th to December 18th every year. The sky maps show that Ophiuchus the Serpent Bearer is depicted as holding Scorpius the Serpent, which is considered a separate constellation altogether. According to ancient Greek star lore, Ophiuchus is Asclepius, the physician who concocted a healing potion from the serpent's venom, mixing it with the Gorgon's blood and some unknown herb. This potion gave humans access to immortality, until the god of the underworld appealed to Zeus to reconsider the ramifications of the death of death. Moving forward into our modern world, even today, the staff of Asclepius is the symbol of the World Health Organization and other medical organizations, paying tribute to the constellation Ophiuchus the Serpent Bearer. That's the bottom line. Here's an answer to a question we hadn't even asked. Headline: Why the total solar eclipse arrives from the west. This is written by Paul Sutter. He's an astrophysicist at Ohio State University and the chief scientist at Cozy Center. Sutter leads science-themed tours around the world out of a place called astrotouring.com. Here's what he writes. Every day, the same routine. The sun rises in the east. Breakfast, off to work. Work, home from work. Dinner. The sun sets in the west. Repeat. It's a pattern familiar to everyone on Earth. For countless generations, we've relied on the regular cycles of the heavens to help demarcate our days. But a total solar eclipse, like the big one coming to the continental United States August 21st, will break the routine. In addition to the moon completely covering the face of the sun, which, let's admit, is already pretty spectacular, the event will move in an unfamiliar and possibly disquieting direction from west to east. The normal daily rising and setting of celestial objects isn't due to their own movement, but rather the rotation of Earth. As our planet spins on its axis, the heavens appear to rise up from the east, arch their way across the sky, and settle into the west. It's hard to blame our ancestors for assuming that Earth, which seemed very large and strong, was incapable of movement. with the ethereal denizens of the heavens gliding along their nested crystal spheres, giving humans our familiar clockwork celestial movements. After centuries of serious work, people realized that Earth does indeed spin, and the motion of the sun, moon, and stars is only apparent. But when it comes to solar eclipses, we're faced with a new incongruity. Why does the path of a solar eclipse start in the west and end in the east? The answer is simple, but it's not something we're accustomed to thinking about. The moon itself orbits Earth from west to east. In other words, if you could rocket up high above the North Pole, the moon would trace out a counterclockwise circle. But Earth rotates about 30 times in a single lunar orbit, so it's not something we normally notice. During a solar eclipse, the path of the moon's shadow must follow the motion of the moon itself to the east. The solar eclipse is a wonderful opportunity to experience astronomy at its most basic, understanding that intricate dance of heavenly objects. Heavenly objects to man-made objects. Here's a headline: SpaceX to send supercomputer into space. This is from the Wall Street Journal 24/7, written by Paul Osick. SpaceX Technologies, an aerospace firm founded and led by Tesla founder and CEO Elon Musk, is set to launch a supercomputer into space today as part of a resupply mission for NASA to the International Space Station. The computer was built by Hewlett-Packard Enterprise Company and has been dubbed the Spaceborne Computer. That, of course, is Spaceborne with a B-O-R-N-E spelling. The launch is part of a year-long experiment by NASA and Hewlett-Packard to determine whether what is basically an off-the-shelf high-performance computer can survive the rigors of space for a full year. Coincidentally, a year is about the amount of time it would take a manned spacecraft to reach Mars. Typically, when NASA wants to send a computing device into space, the device must be modified and hardened, which takes time and money. As a result, computers sent into space are often generations behind devices already available here on Earth. Computing chores that can't be handled by onboard devices have to be packaged up and sent back to Earth, where the programs are then executed, and the results are sent back up to the ISS. This is not a huge concern at present, because communications between the ISS and Earth are nearly instantaneous. Using the same technology would mean that delay 20 minutes for a spacecraft traveling near Mars. The only modifications to the spaceborne computer is software hardening, the inclusion of software that's able to detect and fix certain conditions that might cause the computer to malfunction. The spaceborne computer will be carried aloft by a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket, and the first test of its capability is expected to occur around September 4th, when scientists on the International Space Station boot up the device. And when they do, you'll hear all about it right here on UFO Headline News on Inception Radio Network. Our next headline comes via The Telegraph. Yep, it's all legit info. We double-checked. Here's the headline: NASA to wake up New Horizons spacecraft for voyage into mysterious third zone. Sarah Napton writes this. NASA is to wake up its New Horizons spacecraft next month following a 5-month hibernation ahead of its deeper journey into one of the most mysterious regions of the solar system. New Horizons, which captured incredible images of Pluto in July of 2015, was powered down last April to conserve energy as it traveled through the Kuiper Belt, that vast region of icy debris which encircles the sun and planets. And it's also called the Third Zone. Interesting, a rebranding of the Kuiper Belt. It's now the Third Zone. On September 11th, the spacecraft will awaken for its 16-month journey to 2014 MU69, an ancient object which is thought to be one of the early building blocks of the solar system. The space rock hadn't even been discovered when the craft launched in 2006, and the flyby will be the most distant in the history of space exploration, 1 billion miles beyond Pluto, 4 billion miles from Earth. Recent observations of 2014 MU69 from the Hubble Space Telescope show it's probably 2 binary objects, or a pair of space rocks that are stuck together, bodies which are around 12 miles across. Alan Stern, principal investigator for New Horizons at NASA, said, quote, "We are very likely going to a primordial binary in the Kuiper Belt, a 4-billion-year-old relic of solar system formation, and an exotic building block of the small planets of the Kuiper Belt, like Pluto. It may even be a swarm of smaller bodies left from the time when planets in our solar system formed. New exploration awaits us. It promises a scientific bonanza for the flyby," end quotes. New Horizons was the fastest spacecraft to ever launch, and it's partly powered by nuclear energy. When it launched in January of 2006, Pluto was still a planet, but just a few months later it was downgraded to a dwarf planet, or a Plutoid, which is now officially known as asteroid number 134340. After studying objects in the Kuiper Belt, the third zone, the spacecraft will eventually leave the solar system, so far a feat only achieved by Voyager. And it's carrying the ashes of the scientist who discovered Pluto, Clyde Tombaugh. Tombaugh died on January 17, 1997, 9 years and 2 days before New Horizons' launch, but one of his final requests was for his ashes to be sent into space. Clyde Tombaugh, well, it should be a household name. We couldn't resist sharing this bit of information from Wiki. Clyde William Tombaugh, February 4th, 1906, January 17th, 1997, was an American astronomer. He discovered Pluto in 1930, the first object to be discovered in what would later be identified as the Kuiper Belt. At the time of discovery, Pluto was considered a planet, but was later reclassified as a dwarf planet in 2006. Clyde Tombaugh also discovered many asteroids, and also he called for the serious scientific research of unidentified flying objects, UFOs. Cheers to you, Clyde Tombaugh. Circling the heavens, how perfect. Here's kind of a stopper of a headline. It comes to us by way of the International Business Times, byline for Elana Glowatz. Headline: Intelligent life in the universe might already be extinct. Intelligent life goes extinct shortly after becoming technologically advanced, and that's why we haven't been able to connect with any alien species, argues one scientist. At the center of his assertion is the mediocrity principle, which is popular among astronomers and dictates that there is nothing special about our species, our planet, or our solar system, that everything that went into the evolution of human life on Earth could have happened in other places as well. It thus also dictates that the state in which we find ourselves is completely typical and can be generally applied to the rest of the universe. Who is this professor? Well, it's University of Arkansas Professor Daniel Whitmire. He's suggesting that if we go by this principle, it stands to reason that any technological species would find themselves in a similar situation to humans on Earth. Quote, that they are both the first such species to evolve on their planet, and also that they are early in their potential technological evolution, end quotes. That's according to his paper in the International Journal of Astrobiology. He argues that this implies intelligent species do not exist further along in technological evolution because they have gone, quote, extinct soon after attaining a modern technology, and that this event results in the extinction of the planet's global biosphere, end quotes. The exact details of how technologically advanced life on another planet evolved, like how long it took for it to emerge, are not relevant, says Daniel Whitmire. All that matter is that this life has developed electronic devices as well as technology that can affect the environment. He continues, quote, a technological dinosaur species that evolved in 100 million years on a Mars-sized planet could still be first and early in their technological evolution. If we are typical of this reference class, then other members would, like us, observe that their technological species is the first to evolve on their planet, and also that they are early in their potential technological evolution, end quotes. Those species very well could have been the first on their planets to become advanced, rather than rising from the ashes of another technologically advanced group of beings, based on how it happened on Earth. The study notes that the timeline for how humans emerged and created technology leaves enough room for there to have been another.
What makes new Simply Summer's Eve feminine wash different? It's simple. Seriously, that's the answer. It's made with simple ingredients. Ingredients that help stop odor and help you maintain a naturally healthy pH, gently and effectively. Here's what Simply Summer's Eve ingredients do not include: harsh chemicals, dyes, alcohol, or parabens. And it comes in light, refreshing scents like mandarin blossom and coconut water. New Simply Summer's Eve Gentle Foaming Wash and Cleansing Cloths, gentle by nature. Click the tile to learn more.
Similar species before us on Earth, but that didn't happen. The point at which humans became technological, according to this study, was about 100 years ago, after the Industrial Revolution and the radio burst onto the scene. Quote, according to the principle of mediocrity, a bell curve of the ages of all extant technological civilizations in the universe would put us in the middle 95%. In other words, technological civilizations that last millions of years or longer would be highly atypical, end quotes. That leads to the questions of why there should only be civilizations in which the inhabitants are new to technology and are the first on their planet to get that far. If we assume the evolution and development of humans is typical, it follows that alien species like us were also the first on their planet. And thus, once species become technological, quote, they flame out and take the biosphere with them, end quotes, the university says. The latter part, about the demise of the rest of the biosphere, is crucial to preventing other technologically advanced species cropping up on the same planet. The other option is that humans and Earth are among the outliers, in which case Professor Daniel Whitmire asserts that, quote, by statistics, we have to be the dumbest guys in the galaxy. After all, we've only been technological for about 100 years, while other civilizations could be more technologically advanced than us by millions or billions of years. End quotes. Oh, stay tuned. There must be the rest of the story somewhere out there. And if they're looking down on planet Earth, and if they look into the North American continent, something outstanding is that mitten shape, the state of Michigan. Here's a UFO sighting from Michigan. Clare, Michigan is the city, spelled C-L-A-R-E. MUFON issues case numbers for these sightings for purposes of tracking and identification, hopefully. This case number is 85695. The date of the sighting is August 1st, 2017. It was reported August 6th, 2017. The summary: orange glowing object, circle of cloud around it. Sighting specifics include a viewing distance unknown. The altitude was over 500 feet without cloud cover. The duration of this sighting was 4 minutes. Object features, none. The object's flight path is described as hovering, then path, and this object was shaped like a sphere. There's a little bit of weather reported here for this event. The maximum temperature in Clare, Michigan at the time was 86 degrees Fahrenheit, 30 degrees Celsius. Minimum temperature, 61 degrees Fahrenheit, 16 degrees Celsius. Visibility-wise, maximum visibility, 10 miles, 16 kilometers, dropping down to a minimum of 7 miles, 11 kilometers. There was nothing abnormal about the weather conditions. Here's the report. August 1st, 2017, was watching the International Space Station pass over from west to east when I noticed above me a circular object glowing pale orange light. This pale orange light had a dark center, and there was a perfect cloud surrounding it, diffusing its appearance. I ran in and got my brother, who also witnessed this. This thing was silent, and it hovered, and then it took a path to the north until I could no longer see it. I have never seen anything like this in my lifetime. I live in a rural area in Michigan and always have a black sky. And it wasn't cloudy that night. I was watching the ISS, and earlier I saw iridium flares. This was an unbelievable sighting of something that my older brother and myself will never forget. In fact, we're still trying to figure out what we saw. The only events at this time were Antares in the sky, the star, which does not move across the sky. Nope, stars don't move like that. And underneath this sighting, where you can join the discussion, someone has. And here's what he says. Hello, and thanks for this report. I believe I saw the same object as well. And then he gives the MUFON number for his report. That number is 85709. He continues, from my vantage point, it was like a smudgy halo surrounding a bright center. I was also watching the ISS, and I saw iridium flares as well. And then this additional witness references 3 other cases. You can find those later at a link at ufoheadlinenews.com. He ends, I'm very eager to find out if there's an explanation for what we saw, or if it is truly an unknown. It would be nice if MUFON could pick this one up and try to find out more information. Oh, to that we say, amen. And we say hello again to the state of Michigan, this time a sighting in White Pigeon, Michigan. MUFON case 85869. This sighting carries a date of August 12, 2017, and it got a same-day report. Here's what the witness offers by way of summary. First, flashing light, occasional really bright flashes, one slightly erratic movement with flashes. Sighting specifics tell us there was a viewing distance here of 501 feet to 1 mile, eventually out to over 1 mile. The altitude was over 500 feet. Nope, no cloud cover. The sighting duration, 5 minutes. Object features unknown. Object flight path, straight line path, then path with directional change. This object had a sphere shape. Nothing to note meteorologically, but here is the sighting itself. I was watching the meteor shower with my father. After about 45 minutes, I noticed a flash. At first, I thought it was a drone, but then I realized the height of the object, appearing to be the altitude of a satellite. I pointed this out to my dad, and he was also perplexed. It kept flashing, moving slowly across the night sky. At some points, it flashed brightly like a strobe light. So I got my mom, and she also had no clue as to what this was. We observed this object for about 10 minutes as its flashes got dimmer and dimmer until it was not viewable anymore. My mother went inside then, and my dad and I talked about this sighting. About 15 minutes later, we saw another flash. We thought it was another plane, but it was moving very fast, too fast to be a plane. It moved in a zigzag pattern until it was blocked by trees. It had appeared to be chasing a plane, and it seemed to be about a mile high. Its flashes were nearly exactly like the flashes of a UFO we saw earlier. I have seen a UFO before in my area, and now I have seen 3. Wow, 3, and additional witnesses, Mom and Dad, the best. Interesting, it doesn't sound like this is the first time our witnesses have seen something. What do you bet it's going to continue? On the other hand, it could be those UFOs in Michigan are just there for, well, there's going to be an event in Cedar Springs, Michigan. Here's an article about it. Forum on UFOs in Michigan. On Thursday, August 17th, Dr. Ron Plune, that's spelled Pleune, will hold an open forum and information meeting in the Cedar Springs Library from 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m., followed by a question and answer period from 8 p.m. to 8:30 on the topic of UFOs in Michigan, as well as the greater Rockford, Cedar Springs, and Sand Lake areas. Dr. Plune is a graduate of Aquinas College and Bethany Theological Seminary, with majors in business management, youth and family counseling, as well as a doctorate in apologetics. He has taught at several colleges as an adjunct professor and recently taught an 11-week class at the Rockford Community Education Program on the Billy Meyer UFO contacts that began in 1942. In fact, this course will be offered once again this coming fall. Dr. Plune is also certified for MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. Dr. Ron Plune became interested in UFO activity in childhood and was intrigued with the sightings in the 1960s, but he never saw one until the spring of 1974, when he and his family moved to Rockford in 1973. And then, one clear Saturday morning, a UFO hovered a couple of 100 feet above the backyard, and a call was placed to the Grand Rapids Airport. Oh, this broadcaster knows it well. That airport confirmed that many calls were coming in about UFOs being sighted in the Rockford area. UFO sightings continued to be an interest for him and led him to his UFO teaching efforts, which began in 2016. They include a 2-hour session on how to contact UFOs. Personal contact efforts in 2016 resulted in 38 UFOs flashing a light back when he summoned by light signal, 4 UFO flyovers where UFOs flew approximately 200 feet overhead, and 1 close encounter where a UFO hovered 50 feet off the ground, just 400 feet away, just as he and his wife arrived at what was their common UFO signaling field. In 2017, personal contacts are above the 2016 count for him, and you've got to hear of the UFO he summoned February 19th, as well as how UFOs have flashed back on occasion when he has simply spoken into the night sky. The community will be invited to share personal UFO experiences, express their interest in the formation of a UFO monthly fellowship, and how to sign up for that 11-week course on the Billy Meier UFO story. The Cedar Springs Library does not endorse nor bear any legal liability regarding the subject of this meeting offered by Dr. Ron Plune. It's simply for personal enrichment to those that are interested. Yes, well, they're holding the meeting, at least, and that is the surprisingly good part. Billy Meier. Who'd have thunk it? What we think is what the clocks say. All the time zones indicate we've got to fly because that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to Inception Radio Network. Follow today's broadcast at UFOheadlinenews.com or iHeartRadio. Take care of each other. We're all in this together. This is Carol Carl. See you tomorrow.